Hot Girl's Crazy. I love that video.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Well, I always say this. It's like two women have completely different experiences of the same man. We could meet the same man and you have a completely different experience to what I would have of him, and I might have a completely different experience of how you have it. And with hot girls, they get the worst version of men. They really get the worst version of men. Again, the men in the comments, oh, you're blaming us. But here's what it is. Men like sex. They like pretty women. So when they see a pretty girl and a hot girl, they can't help but become a guy that's trying to conquer her, they're trying to get her. And he'll risk it all. If he's married, he doesn't care. If it's at the gym, he doesn't care. If it's at work, he'll cross the work boundaries. They lose their sense of professionalism or their sense of like loyalty just to kind of get an access to her. So she starts to go through life thinking, men are trash. This guy had a girlfriend. This guy was married. That guy's my boss. And he still moved to me. Still tried to be, my London comes out. He still tried to get to me. So she starts to see men as creatures who can't control their sexual urges. Whereas you take a basic or plain Jane, she can be in a bikini next to a guy and he doesn't even notice her. And so she thinks men are, they're fine, they're sufferable, they don't do anything. So she's far more like, oh yeah, go on a lad's holiday, oh you can go Ibiza, oh you can do this, no worries, blah, blah. Whereas a girl that's on the receiving end of going to Ibiza and the guy saying, go on my table today, or you're not leaving, or taking you to the top tables and stuff, she's watching you every time you go out on a night out.
Do you think like a lot of the hot girls, you know, that are available in this market now, most of them have become like sugar babies?
I think so. I think if you come from a broken home, especially if you don't have a family background, and I do understand that this is no judgment, but when you don't have a home with one parent missing, what happens then, you don't have accountability to two people. And you just do what you got to do to make ends meet. Sometimes you don't even need to make ends meet, but it becomes addictive. When you
Because it's so easy, right?
When you divorce sex from any emotion and you see it as an activity, why not get paid for that activity? And so this is what culture has done. It's slowly and steadily taken women to this point. First thing was to create the idea of sex before marriage. Then it was the idea of a spontaneous sex. Then it was the idea of one-night stands. Then it's now the idea of, why are you doing one-night stands? Get paid for it. If you don't care about the guy, you're never going to see him again. Why would you waste your body? Might as well make money. So society has conditioned us to get more and more provocative.
But isn't prostitution the oldest business in the world?
It was for people who were desperate. Now it's for people who just want to get their nails done.
Wow. I mean, you know, one thing I've seen since I've come to Dubai is the sugar baby lifestyle here.
Yeah, it's so real.
It's so, like, I'd always see like YouTube videos about it.
No, you'll see it now, like when you go to Starbucks, you'll see the sugar baby.
Yeah. But I'd always watch like a YouTube video, I'm a sugar baby and this is what I got.
And I thought it was some hidden thing, and I was like, oh, I wonder what it's like now. It's just
what
like,
it's
oh, she's right there. Yeah, just ask her.
Yeah. And it's so glorified here.
Well, it's
or here or around the world. Forget here.
I think it's in every big city, even Miami. But this is in cultures where you minimize the emotional attachment to sex. And men, this is another thing men are delusional about. They think women can't have sex without emotion. Yes, they can. How do you think prostitutes have done it their whole lives? They can when they decide to monetize it.
But I feel like it affects women because I listen to a lot of Jordan Peterson. Shout out to JP.
Man like JP. Man like. Yeah.
And he spoke a lot about women and you know, sexual attachment and stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like women that are in that industry or they're in that space, they have more higher chance of like suicide or depression.
And men and women. Here's the thing, we've gotten so used to the idea that men and women are different when it comes to sex, and men can have sex with everybody and anyone, and women can have sex with just one man, but here's the thing, it's psychological for both people. Ask men who cheat, they're usually going through an ego boost. They need an ego boost, or they feel unappreciated by their wife, or they've just lost their job and they need an escapism. It's psychological. If it was biological, they'd have sex with their wife all day, every day, but they don't. So it's a case of, there's an escapism. There's some psychological escapism. Now, for women who do it, it's definitely a sense of she's met people who have used her body so many times against her will that now she's trying to take back control. There's a reason why sex abuse leads to prostitution, a really high rate. They find that sex workers, I'm sure it's different now, but the last time they looked at the data before it became glorified, sex workers have a real history of childhood abuse. And what happens is when you've been abused or molested as a child, the control has been taken out of your hands. Somebody's accessed your body and violated it without your permission. So to reestablish control, the person who's been a victim starts to then sell their body. and say, you can only access me on my terms now. And it's a form of regaining control. But until you undo the trauma, it's going to happen again and again.
Wow. So
how do we get from sugar babies to this?
Because
I'm so sorry.
It's fine,
but there is an element of that.
Yeah,
I would imagine they were violated at some point. And I actually think it doesn't even need a violation. I actually think it's the culture of losing your virginity at a young age.
Really?
Yeah, I think that the reason why we have so many sugar babies now and so much is they lost their virginity at a young age. I used to be a teacher. So I would have Monday mornings of girls coming into my office and being like, oh, miss, I need to get an abortion quickly, and this awful stuff like this. And they would lose their virginity at such a young age. And the advent of Snapchat meant that 11-year-olds were sending nudes. And it's like, 11, sending nudes? What are you talking? I didn't even know what that was a thing. But when you do that at such a young age, there's no way you don't experience shame and guilt. Impossible. Because nobody looks at losing their virginity at 12, 13 years old and thinking, yeah, that was a good idea. So to reestablish control over that experience is to then monetize sex and make sex feel like it's just a job. And then you don't feel so guilty and ashamed of what you did when you were young.
So do you think that's where OnlyFans comes in? There's a lot of young girls on there.
I would love to do a study on this, but OnlyFans girls,
Please do
I would love to. Yeah, I would love to. Who wants to fund me? I would love to do that. Where it's OnlyFans girls, I can imagine they lost their virginity either non-consensually or too young. I don't believe it can be consensual when you're young.
How young is too young now?
Well, the thing is, maybe because I worked with kids and I see they're kids. They're so small. So even 15, 16, which is the legal age, they're kids. There's no decision you can make at 16 and still make the same decision at 30. So it's too young.
Yeah, but I could argue that, like, someone in a village of Pakistan, she's got married at 16 and she's...
But she didn't lose her virginity. Somebody invested in her. There's a self-esteem attached to that. Somebody's taking the time to marry you and invest in you, and you're having a whole courtship, and there's a wedding, and there's a meher, a dowry. So there's no lack of self-esteem. But a 15-year-old who's had sex in the back of a park by a guy that she just wanted him to like her more, and it's not really because she loves him, there's a completely different self-worth that comes attached to that.
Interesting.
And it's the culture. And, when I was a teacher, it would shock me that parents would be like, oh yeah, so-and-so's just staying at her boyfriend's house this weekend, and they'd be 14, 15 years old. And I'd be like, come on, Janet, you can be stricter than that, babes. What's going on? Because they would literally be like, oh, she's staying with her boyfriend or going on holiday with her boyfriend. And they're like 16, 15 years old. They're too young.
I think I'd have a panic attack.
I would kill...
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that, but I would literally be beside myself if that was the case. Yeah, I would literally be beside myself because it's just too young. They can't even do their homework on time, and you think they should know what their sexual partner should look like.
Yeah, 100%. I think if I had kids now...
you wouldn't be able to. I stopped teaching because of it. Because of the culture in the schools. It is too traumatizing for me to watch.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that when it comes to, like, men investing into women in those villages, they probably feel...
Huge investment.
Yeah, it's huge.
You're saving them from poverty a lot of the time. Like, they might be from families where, I'm not saying it's perfect, but what it does to a woman's self-worth is completely different. So, yes, she might be poor and then she gets married at 15 years old, but there's a whole shebang. There's a whole ceremony. It's, parents are like giving her away. You feel like a woman. They make you feel like a woman, but there's none of that when you're just a teenager who's had a crush on a boy, doesn't know how to get his attention, so now you sleep with him.
So, talking about self-esteem, a question popped into my head that I've been wanting to ask you. Obviously, we've gone on to OnlyFans. Mm-hmm. We've spoken about sugar babies. I actually really want to ask you something that a lot of girls use, even I've used and I've been addicted to, FaceApp.
Yeah, and filters in general.
In general, and FaceApp and Facetune. What is the dark side of using those apps?
Can't have any good consequences, I'll be honest, because I remember a time when there wasn't any filters. I use filters. I love a filter. I do love it. I know. So this is no judgment or anything like that.
Yeah, use them, but I just want to know.
But I remember the first time Snapchat came out with filters and stuff, and I remember how ridiculous it was. It was like a dog or I was like, oh my God.
The flowers.
Flowers and dogs and I don't know, puppies coming out of your head and all that stuff. But what it did to you is it showed you a version of your face if you were prettier. It's like shows you, oh, if I just lost a bit of weight here, if I just had a slimmer nose, if I had like bigger lips, this is what I would look like. Oh my God, perfect. Let me go get that. So it's a form of consumerism. It's a form of implanting an idea and a desire to go and get cosmetics, because women consume cosmetics, and cosmetics is a huge, huge industry. So I think it is geared towards, and you know, as people say, like girls are starting to look the same now, and so on and so forth. And I understand that because we're all using the same filters.
Yeah, because you know, like, and one of the guys on my team will say this. He will take professional photos of me, and he'll edit them, and then I'll put face up on them, and he's like,
"But you look better." I said this. You look even better in person.
Thank you very much. I really
mashallah.
appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. So do you.
Yeah,
obsessed. And he was like, "You look really edited."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Do I?" And he's like,
and I can't even see it.
Yeah,
when
yeah,
I do it, I'll send it to a guy and I'll be like, "Oh, what's that?" And he's like, "Oh, that's so edited." I'm like, "That looks so natural to me."
I know what it is.
But yeah, no, and also it doesn't help. Like I remember when I was young and stuff, there was no such thing. Like you would have like a simple phone, so there was no such thing as posting on Instagram and stuff. So if you took a bad picture, you took a bad picture, you wouldn't care. But now that picture has to go somewhere. It has to present to the world with it. And if it's not perfect, you feel insecure. Whereas before, a picture would be nothing. Yeah. So I think the pressure and where it's going also adds to that, and just the also pressure of the fact that it's so readily available. The Instagram generation is really it's really toxic. It is toxic, and I'm part of it because I am part of Instagram as well. So I'm not saying this in a judgmental way. I'm saying it from an experienced way. It is very toxic, but this is why I'm so big on education. When praise be to God, and this is not me trying to say, but when people say nice comments about appearance and stuff like that, it goes like this to me. I don't care for it, but because I've built something else that I'm proud of, which is my brain, and as a result, I'm not dependent. And even when they say insults about my looks, it doesn't really bother me.
You know what? I was just saying that the other day to my partner. I was like, I don't need to be the most stunning, person in the room. I don't need to be the most beautiful because for me, it's about my work. Yeah. It's about everything else that I do.
And that's one of the things why I don't find Dubai difficult at all. Yeah. Because a lot of people be like, oh, there's so many pretty girls, so many this. And I'm like, yeah, but I've worked on something beyond my looks. I don't compare myself on people on looks. I don't compare myself at all because I know what I have. All praise be to God. Is me. Is my is my education. It's my way of speaking, and it's also my personality and stuff. So I mean, the thing is, people only see the educated side online, but that's like even that I don't really rate that about myself. If you know me as a person, I'm like quite fun and I'm a good friend and all these things. So even my friends didn't even know I had all this knowledge because that's not why they attached to me. So because I feel like I've got such a multifaceted personality, the looks part of stuff, it doesn't feel like a real compliment. It goes over my head. But if you say something that is more linked to something that's unique about me, that's when I feel flattered. And I think if more women worked on those things, they would feel less pressure to be the prettiest girl in the room. Yeah.